please welcome to the stage this evening, star of the film, Mr. Jim Sturgess, and your director, Lone Scherfig.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you. It's working, yes.
Yeah, it does
All
work.
good.
Yay! Thank you for joining us tonight. A lot of people very excited about this film. One of those stories that just captivated people's and captured people's hearts, because I guess so many people can relate to elements of the original story as well and stuff. Jim, had you read the book prior to being involved in the project?
No, I hadn't. I mean, I read the script first, which I'm quite pleased I did, because I could sort of judge it on just it being a script and it being a film, and and it sort of, touched and moved me even at that, as a script. So I knew that, it was going to work as a film. And then I was able to sort of go into the book and, really find the sort of flesh and bones of the characters and sort of discover a lot more. In fact, Lone gave me her copy of the book at the audition, which I thought was quite a good sign.
Is that a sign that you had it?
Yeah.
You got the job. She gave me her book?
She gave me the book.
Did you know pretty much straight away when he auditioned?
Well, I think, Jim, I read an interview with you somewhere where you didn't know if I actually had a whole pile of books in my But no, it was my copy. Yes, and I gave it to Jim because I thought if he read it, it probably wouldn't be a waste of his time, because I thought he was going to play the part. Mm. And also because when I get nervous, I tend to give people things. Okay. But you can't have my handbag, okay?
Can I have your glasses, though? At least your glasses.
It's within the film, the relationship spans 20 years. Is that a great, I guess, palette for an actor in terms of how that changes throughout that time space of putting, giving it different twists? And
yeah, I mean, it's so rare to sort of spend 20 years with one person. Normally you can, the film spans in a day or such a short space of their life. So the kind of, the concept of just meeting up with them every year, that one day a year, it was a challenge, because you had to sort of, really flesh out what was happening in that year before the film kind of catches up with them. Especially with the relationship that Dexter has with Anne's character, Emma. You had to work out sort of, what else had been going on that year. Had you been talking much that year? Had you been arguing? Had you not even seen each other that year? So yeah, it was really exciting just to play so many different stages in one person's life. One minute you're a father, someone thrust a screaming baby in your hands, which was terrifying. And then the next minute you're a sort of, coked up TV presenter, in an outrageous suit with shoulder pads out here.
Lonnie, for you, what was it that made you want to work on this project?
It's a lovely script. It's very, very good and very humorous dialogue. And then at some point the story takes a drastic turn and it becomes very emotional. So it had both elements, which I generally really like. It's very layered, and it's about all the detours you take through your 20s and 30s. So it was life that I have already lived, and a fantastic challenge to make all these tiny time jumps and to direct actors of your caliber.
It's that thing of condensing something as well, in terms of a book that's been such a huge success for people, to condense that to fit in on the big screen. Was that an easy job? Was that an easy thing to do?
Well, it's David Nichols, who wrote the book one day, also wrote the script. So a lot of the decisions about what to keep in and what to leave out, he'd already done. And as you know, film is very economic. There is so much information about time and place and mood, and that you get just from the images and from the music, the way that changes. It's produced differently over those 20-something years. And that is cinema. Even if it's a wonderful book, it has strong cinematic qualities, because you just very subtly see and feel how things change. And hopefully, when you get towards the end, get this, oh, wow, was that all that time we spent, when you realize that they have aged in front of you without you noticing.
Was there a favourite location for you both for filming? Because you had some pretty awesome locations.
Yeah, we were really lucky. I mean, obviously we had to shoot the film over the summer, because, it's every day the 15th of July, so there was never a rainy day on set, Edinburgh, obviously, was a lovely place to go.
Got me right there. That's it.
But then I have to say that. No, I mean, it was one of the greatest sort of filming experiences of my life, really, was when we sort of went to Dinard, which is in the north of France, near Brittany. And we had to play these two characters on holiday, you know, so that was like the easiest day at work ever. Lauren was like, right, can you just go and sunbathe on that beach over there? And we'll film you doing it. I was like, all right, that's fine. You know, go for a swim in the sea and, you know, we'll film you doing that. So yeah, it was at a time when we'd been sort of working on the film long enough and relationships had been made with the crew and we were all sort of good friends by that point. And it was just a really sort of fun. How long were we there for? A week or a couple of weeks?
Yeah, maybe a week or so. And about this, a couple of days in Edinburgh and some days in Paris.
Paris was good, yeah.
So we got to shoot at some really amazing places, but most of the film does take place here in London, and the characters are very typical for Londoners of that period.
Well, let's take a little look at a couple of clips to kind of see that progression of the relationship through those different locations as well. We start off with, he thinks it's the first time they've met. Have a look at this clip. Brilliant Jodie Whittaker there as well. She's great.
She's amazing.
Love Jodie as well.
I just did another film with Jodie after where she played my wife, so that was kind of strange.
Oh, awesome. Weird. And we have to talk about Anne as well, because from the off, she's in there. She's given him as good as he thinks he can give, sort of thing, which is a real spark to the start of that character and their relationship, I think, as well. From that scene. Yeah,
the sort of banter that they have, which is straight. I mean, that happens straight away. The minute they meet, they sort of, almost sort of rib each other and just banter off each other. And they come at life from such different points of view, but are able to just sort of connect through humour, I think, So, Anne's character is great at that time.
I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking about myself. Everyone, I think, must have had that person that was a friend that you've thought at some point, maybe. Am I the only one? Everyone's just sitting there going, yes, you are. But this is the point where she confesses to Dexter about all those years. It's a compilation tape, see? I made at least 5 of those. Yeah. Did you ever make a compilation tape for anyone? Yeah. See?
The cassette recorder wasn't invented when I was that age.
It's really timeless as well, the film, in terms of the really subtle, obvious signs of when it's happening, in terms of years or decades and stuff like that. But it really is timeless as well. It's a timeless story. Would you agree?
Thank you. That's thanks on behalf of David Nichols, the writer. It's it's very basic. This that you are lovers but think you're friends, or vice versa. But it's such great love over such a long time span. But it gives you an opportunity to look at other things, and the sub-themes in the film are really interesting, and especially Dexter's drama with his career and his family, and years where he abuses all sorts of substances and does things he shouldn't have done, is a more complex story, whereas Emma is insecure, has a lot that she has to struggle with because she's not nearly as privileged as Dexter, and overcompensating, and of course in love with a man who hardly notices her, but still likes her and calls her all the time. And there's something completely elementary about it, but because of the way it's written and the scenes that David has decided to tell in this story, then it becomes different in the most positive sense of the word.
And in this scene this last clip we're going to show from the film, and then we'll get some questions from you guys. This is when it changes. This is when you see Emma and she's completely changed, and you just see, I don't know, I guess you're saying she's insecure, and you see that she's suddenly become really powerful, and I guess self-belief in a way, I guess maybe is part of it. But this is a great little scene when she comes to pick Dexter up from the station. Oh, dun, dun, dun.
That's a cliffhanger.
Don't say anything. We're going to get your questions. Who'd like to ask the first question? Right there in the front row, gentleman there. There's a microphone for you. Can you tell us your name, please, as well?
Yeah, I'm Neil.
Hi, Neil.
Jim, how would you describe your slightly chaotic character? And what could you advise us, the audience? What have you learned from playing a character covering 20 years from college onwards?
Just a short one.
How would I describe my slightly chaotic character? Slightly chaotic, it would be a good starting place. So, yeah, I mean, I remember when I first sort of read the script, like a lot of people, I didn't really like him. I sort of found him sort of obnoxious and irritating and arrogant and all those sort of great things, and that was a real sort of draw. But obviously, as I sort of went into looking at his life and the reasons behind this behaviour, I found a lot of insecurity there and a lot of vulnerability, and then I started to really like him, and then I started thinking, well, actually, he's a really good guy. I mean, he really cares for Emma, and he's a really good friend to her, and he's really supportive of what she does, and then I was sort of jealous of his sort of spontaneity and his impulsive sort of lifestyle, that he was just able to sort of live life to the full. But I mean, he's irresponsible and he makes some big mistakes in life, and part of the film he has to sort of find redemption, I suppose, and he has to sort of learn from those mistakes and realize that there is there's consequences for his actions. But he was fun to play, and he does change so much throughout the film. I mean, there's many versions of what he becomes, And so it was really, I enjoyed playing the sort of really smarmy sort of Dexter in his TV presenting days when he's taking lots of drugs and drinking and generally being fairly self-destructive. But then I had a really, really beautiful time playing a father to the kids, I really enjoyed acting alongside the young girl who played my daughter, and had a really sort of rich acting experience having to work with a young kid. Because when you work with a young kid, you have to create that believability all the time. You can't just sort of turn up and then just act through those scenes. I had to sort of help maintain that sort of relationship even when the cameras weren't sort of rolling, and I really enjoyed sort of working with her and playing that part of his life when he'd sort of mellowed and he'd gone through some pretty tragic things in his life and had sort of learned to sort of accept who he is as a person. As far as advice, geez, man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm worthy of giving any advice. I guess, life sort of throws a lot of stuff at you, and you have to learn from all the mistakes that you make. And that was the other thing. I mean, I find, Dexter isn't a bad person, and he's not so horrific, he sleeps with a lot of women. Great, He has a good time. Great. He doesn't do anything bad to anybody. He never really manipulates Emma that much, and when he does think he's gonna, he fixes it, So yeah, I don't have any advice, I don't think, other than learn from your mistakes, and also acknowledge the people that are around you, and be aware of them and how important they could well be in your life,
Taking people for granted.
Yeah.
Next question, please.
Hello. It's a really well-loved book. I've never read it. I just want to say that straight away. I'm going to see the film first. Do you feel a pressure when there's a book that's so big and so well-regarded towards the fans, and obviously playing a character that's people have already got an idea of what they're like in their heads? Did you feel like pressure?
I do now, yeah.
Sorry.
I didn't at the time, but I'd been out of the country a lot. I'd been working on something else, so I wasn't really aware of how popular the book was here in England. And then we started the film, and we were sort of, when you make a film, you're in such a little bubble, so I didn't really I wasn't that aware of it. It wasn't until after we made the film that I just saw that orange cover everywhere I went, and then I started to get a little freaked out. And yeah, you'd sit on the train, or you'd be sitting in the park, or you'd be on a beach. And when I even saw the book on a beach in Dubai, I was just like, oh my God. It's that cover, yeah. It's plaguing my nightmares.
The new cover is going to have your face in it.
I know, jeez, man. But it's hard. I mean, you can only tackle it from what you can see in the pages and interpret it the way you can interpret it. And I can't do much about the way I look, that's just the way I look. So, I mean, hopefully people are forgiving, and I understand, and everybody has the right, and everybody should have their own Dexter, because you're drawing from your own life when you read the book, and the characters are so well written and so reminiscent of people that so you will draw off your own life. But luckily I was Lona's version of Dexter, so that's good enough for me. I'll take that.
Lona, what about for you as a director? Did you?
Yes, definitely. There's a big responsibility, not just to the writer, but also to the people who love the book. And as it became more and more popular in the States as well, where we were shooting, you felt that pressure a lot. But I think the best way to handle it is to just make sure that it becomes proper cinema and not an attempt to be correct, but to do something to also honor people like you who have not read it yet. But you have to just think of it as something positive, that there is so much attention, and it's a sign that there really is something with these characters you can identify with, and that the tone of the book and hopefully the film is something that is accessible and feels good, even if there are very, very emotional moments.
The fact that David's written the screenplay as well, you know, it's kind of, there's still an element of ownership there, you know, in terms of, you know, I guess when you and Anne were brought on sort of thing, in terms of, you wonder whether, you know, when he thought about it becoming a film, of who he had in his mind in terms of playing those parts and stuff. So what was he like on set? Was he on set much?
He was on set. There were times, certainly in the beginning, and then we, in the sort of rehearsal period, we had opportunities to talk to David and, you know, ask him any questions and just sort of bounce off each other. But he's so kind and was so generous and was so positive about whatever we were doing, that felt good, you know, to have the inventor of these characters. If he sort of gave us a thumbs up, I felt kind of good about that, and it sort of spurred us on, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, David's a great guy, so.
Who's got his question, please? Gentleman at the front.
Hello, I'm Francesco.
Hi, Francesco.
Do you sing in this film? Do you sing?
Do you sing?
Do I sing in the film? No, no.
No.
No, not at all. There was a shower scene that got cut. No more. No.
Shame.
Thank you.
Next question. Good question. Obviously a fan of your music, Jim.
Yeah, good, yeah.
Next question.
Were either of you inspired by any particular films or life experiences when making and acting in the film?
I actually did look at a lot of films that have many time jumps, because this film checks in on the same people, either one of them or both of them, every single year on the same day. But very often it's much more in your face, that the makeup or costumes or cars or whatever is there in order to clarify to the audience that time passes. And with this film, it was the intention to do it in a much more subtle way. So I couldn't really use any of those. But I do think whenever you go to work in my type of work, you have all the best of what you've seen in the back of your head, and of course that puts an enormous amount of pressure on you. But on the other hand, it makes you prepare well, and it makes you with this film, where it's almost like 23 small films put together, because they move from one world to another very different world. Then it's good to have your whole craft with you, knowing that the year Dexter is a TV presenter calls for one style of filmmaking, and the more, the heavier, more emotional scenes where, for instance, he is with his mother, are more slow, more moving, and that takes a different kind of craft that you, of course, learn from some of all the films you've seen. Does that answer your question? No.
Jim, what about you? I mean, was Dexter a character for you that you feel, you had to research much, or could you kind of create him from life?
It was a weird, I mean, certainly I know, but you see people like that, swanning around the sort of bars of Soho or whatever.
On telly.
On telly, yeah. So, brushing with minor celebrity. But yeah, I mean, there was up to a point I could draw a lot from my own life, and then of course he gets a lot older than I do. So then I had to sort of look at cousins and other people, my own parents, and other things through life. But I mean, I think young people can relate to sort of what he gets up to, and I think it's fine that he isn't quite ready to commit to one person, and that he struggles with love and relationships and sort of that side of life, you know, and that he goes through some pretty traumatic things as well. So I mean, I think, you know, and certainly just being out having fun as a young person, you know, that's I could draw a lot from that, you know.
Also get a bit of a time machine visual image of yourself in, you know.
Yeah, I was
20
quite
years
pleased.
time,
I was
Silver
quite
Fox.
pleased with how I
Yeah.
looked at 43. Yeah, I'm sure I'll end up bald and fat, but he managed to keep his own hair, so I was all right with that.
Next question. I think there was a lady just behind. Don't be shy.
I was wondering if you considered English actors for the role and what made you, like you've worked with Carrie Mulligan before, and I'm sure she's pretty talented, and what made you think of Anne instead? Or
It's a really hard part, and Anne is very experienced, considering how young she is. So that made a difference. But of course, when you interpret this beloved book, starting out by casting someone like Anne Hathaway, and she was cast very quickly, so we didn't really think of a lot of people because she was there almost from the very beginning. It is a sign that the film is going to go in a more dramatic direction, and because it starts out like very light romantic comedy and then becomes more and more emotional, it's good to start out with someone who's not as light as an actress as we might have found, because you only have 107 minutes, I think, to go through this emotional journey that takes much longer in the book. So I knew that it had to be someone experienced, that it had to be someone warm, someone who would work like a maniac to get it right. But also, she's the kind of actress I really like. I admire the way she works, and strangely, she works a lot like with coming from a British tradition, even if she also is inspired by the American method acting. The dialect is something that the British actors very often use as their way of accessing the character. Don't make fun of my dialect. But and it helps you find the person. Whether you're from Wales, having to play someone from Ireland or whatever. But we knew it was going to be an issue, and I think Emma is so loved, this Emma Morley, so no matter who played her, someone else would have had a better casting idea. I'm really glad we made that choice. It was a fantastic journey, and I'm very grateful with the way that Anne and Jim collaborated, because I think it means a lot, if not to the final film, because there are films where actors who don't get along play together very well, but I think it means a lot to the general positive feel of the film that there is good chemistry.
It must be a bit of a gamble as a director in terms of, you know, you put two actors together who, I mean, did you know Anne beforehand?
No, we never met, no.
I guess it is a slight gamble and stuff, but I mean, the chemistry's
But the more
fantastic.
experienced they are, the less you gamble, of course, because the more they've proved that they can become different characters and always will play people who are very different, or often very different from themselves.
Yeah.
So that in itself makes you or them start at a level where a lot of the insecurity is not there, where the insecurity is about not doing it, but doing it as good as you possibly can. And that puts you one step forward already. Isn't that how it feels?
Yes.
You mentioned about putting the work in, and I know when you can relate with Anne in terms of how much, I know she put in a lot of work with dialect coaches, and you did the same for, the flip side of that, American for 21 and stuff as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the only films where I've really used a British accent, to be honest. And then it was a slightly posher version of my own, so I had a dialect coach as well.
Did you?
I was like that, schooling away on the other side of the set. But yeah, I think the best thing to do, and Anne was really great. You know, she stayed in the accent all the time we were on the set. So for me, it became totally the way she spoke. That's how I saw her in the morning, and that's how I saw her as she left. You know, she always had an English accent, so then you completely forget about it. You know, after a week of doing that, it just becomes totally natural, and then you're not even aware of it even happening. Yeah, it was only until she'd had a glass of wine or something in the bar afterwards that you'd start hearing her American accent creeping out. I'd be like, what's that? So, yeah, I mean, and that way, and it's true, because when you watch the film, she owns that voice. She does, and there's so many films where you can hear they're putting on an accent. And it doesn't feel like that at all when you watch the film and with Anne doing it. You know, and that's just from doing it all day, every day. And she really committed herself to do that.
And I think it's really, really subtle, because there has been talk of the accent and stuff as well. And I think that, you know, you don't want her to come on screen and sound like someone from, you probably won't know what I'm going to talk about, Emmerdale. Do you know what I mean? That kind of, it's, you know, from someone who's travelled from Scotland, worked in London and stuff, your accent changes.
Yeah.
You know, where you take on, you know, dialects from different parts of where you are and stuff. And you kind of forget that Anne Hathaway is playing Emma and that she's American when you're watching the film. And that's
I did.
a sign of good work.
Yeah. And also, like, someone wrote a review saying, Jim Sturgess' British accent is terrible. Why do they always cast Americans in these British roles? I was like, I don't know. I'll take that as a compliment out in America. I don't know.
What do you want people to take from this film, Lona?
I think there's a big issue about time. Not just, I mean, Dexter really learns what love is over the course of the film. Emma learns how destructive insecurity can be and what she could demand from love. But the issue about time, about how you spend your time, about how to not waste this most valuable thing that you have is I think profound and worth hopefully the time you spend watching the film. And film and time have a fantastic relation that's made it a great experience to direct this film.
Jim, do you have a favourite scene?
Favourite scene? Oh.
Or most memorable?
Well, yeah, the most memorable scene was the scene with the baby that I had, which was possibly one of the worst days of my life.
How long did it take to film?
We did a whole day of it. I was really tired as well. I remember we'd been working really hard and someone just thrust this sort of screaming baby in my arms and I had to sort of deal with that. And this baby just hated me no matter what I did.
Did kind of sing.
Yeah, that's true.
He did kind of sing in that bit,
a bit of Wham or something, wasn't it? I can't remember. But yeah, it was just, it was really, and luckily Dexter's not supposed to be a great father, but it was that was hard work, having to work with this child and you could give the baby to anybody else and it would calm down and be beautiful and angelic and everybody loved it. And then it just related me to just sort of hatred, I think, I don't know. And then the minute it came back to me and it would claw at my face and just sort of scream in my ear. And then, but they often do it in pairs, so there's two babies, so they're twins. And so the second one would come down and give the other one a bit of a break, and it would be all calm and angelic and well rested, and everyone would think how beautiful it was. Then they'd hand it over to me, and then it would just shriek with pure hatred for me. Yeah.
You're going to be reunited with those twins in 18 years' time. Happy birthday!
Yeah. But I think that's the closest I ever felt to Dexter at that moment, because I felt what he was going through for real.
I'm going to give you one last chance for questions, and then we're going to wrap things up. Anyone there we go. Lady right there.
Well, actually, it's not a question.
Oh.
I'm from Spain, and I just want you to know that I really admire your work, and I'm looking forward to watch your new film.
Oh, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
it. Thank you.
What a lovely way to end then, I think, everyone. Thank you so much for coming down this evening. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.